Okay, Mayor, you're good to go.
Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Board of Aldermen's meeting on March 23rd, 2021. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll have a flag put up on the screen, and if you would join me or just hold your hand over your heart, I'd appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we'll read the preamble to the Constitution of the State of Missouri. We, the people of Missouri, with profound reverence for the supreme ruler of the universe and grateful for his goodness, do establish this Constitution for the better government of the state. And now ask for the invocation from Jamie Roush.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, I come before you tonight, and I am so very thankful for the city. I'm thankful for the weather that you've given to us and all of the things going on around our city, for the long lines. Just so amazing to see once again how you work in even our everyday lives. I love you, Lord, and I just pray for this meeting. I pray for wisdom for all of those of us who speak and understanding for those of us who are listening. May it all be according to your will and your honor and your glory. Thank you for salvation, Lord. Thank you for grace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Jamie. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
King,
Present.
Whitus,
Present.
Simmons,
Here.
Akers,
Here.
Skanes,
Here.
Milton,
Here.
C.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We welcome you to our board meeting tonight virtually. I would like to ask the city clerk to read the introduction to the virtual meeting. Madam Clerk.
This meeting is being held virtually due to the COVID-19 virus and the recommendation of the Centers for Disease Control, along with the state and city emergency proclamations that are in effect. We will review our procedures for conducting tonight's meeting. Participants in this meeting who will be joining the meeting virtually include members of the Board of Aldermen and city staff. The microphones of all board members and staff members participating in the meeting should be muted at all times so as not to impede the ability of meeting participants and observers to hear the proceedings. Members of the board or staff who wish to speak will be recognized by the mayor. Members of the public were invited to speak by signing up prior to tonight's meeting by using a link to a speaker sign-up form for virtual meetings. Those who have signed up will be able to speak on the items they requested to speak on. Please note, public comments will be limited to 5 minutes and discussion on all other agenda items will be 3 minutes, unless additional time is allowed by the mayor. The speaker will be notified when there's 30 seconds remaining of their allotted speaking time. Mayor, please note we have speakers signed up to speak during public comment and on items 6, 9, 11, 12, 14, and 16. The voting procedure for tonight's meeting will be by roll call vote on every action item before the board. The city clerk will call the name of each board member for their vote and will announce the results. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And board members, since we are virtual, if you would help me out by waving your hand in front of the screen so that I can see that you're wishing to speak, I'd appreciate that so I can recognize you. This is the public comment section of the Board of Aldermen meeting. At this time, the board would hear citizens who have signed up to speak virtually using the speaker sign-up form for virtual meetings. Madam Clerk, would you please announce the first speaker?
Our first speaker tonight is Patrick Chris. His address is 220 Garner Drive, Branson, Missouri, and he's speaking on possible human trafficking by 501c3 organizations.
Mayor, I do not see Mr. Crisp in our attendees list, so he is not available at this time. He did not dial in.
Madam Clerk, the next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Bo DeJager, 106 South Drive, Branson, Missouri, and he's speaking on tourism tax.
Can you hear us okay, Mr. DeJager?
All right, can you hear me clearly?
We can. We'll start your 5 minutes now, sir.
All right, thank you. Good evening, board. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to us as far as our concerns with our proposed going forward. I want to bring up the tourism tax, and hoping maybe an alderman will reach out if I'm on the wrong direction and the wrong route of where my thinking is. I've had numerous conversations with other citizens that obviously believe the other way, and so do many of the candidates. But I would like some clarity and hope somebody would like to clear that up for me on factual basis and not just someone's opinion as far as mine goes as well. To my knowledge and how I look at the tourism tax is every business, every visitor comes in and they pay their bill at these hotels, and the hotels are responsible for paying the water and sewer bill. So for everyone insinuating that they're not paying their share for usage of the water and sewer I believe is false. I think with them staying at the hotels and spending their money there and also getting tax money is them paying and paying for their uses that they're utilizing while they're here staying. So to make this statement that they're not paying their fair share, I think is completely false. As far as our citizens and how much we use on the same instance is why are we needing more infrastructure costs? Do our monthly payments to business or personal, are they not covering the cost of labor hours, the cost of running it and certain routine maintenance? Or does it not cover any of that stuff and we need extra finances directed to that? But my common sense thinking would say that most of the bills and whatever the city brings in on that topic would be compensated and covered under all of the bills that come in. Otherwise, it needs to be readdressed. So in doing so, why do we need 75% of this $90 million to go to infrastructure? And I just heard the other day, and if I am incorrect, please correct me. I was told that the improvements to the water sewer treatment plant was $11 million, and we currently already have 2/3 of that money. Not to mention that tonight is also agenda items talking about getting more funding from our county. So what do we need approximately $60 million in infrastructure directed towards that? And maybe some of you or others believe that it's going towards our roads and streets. Well, doesn't every other city get covered and pay for that out of licensing fees and just general tax? Someone say something. Anyway, so I don't think that money is justified, and for people saying that, oh, it's going to fall back on the community and residents, that's not how I see it, but I would like somebody that has some facts to correct me on it. I just believe that the money is there, and the citizens and tourists, they come in and they spend their money, and that's how they're paying and covering all their usage that everybody believes that they're not paying their fair share for the abuse of our roads and sidewalks and sewer treatment plant, is they're spending their money and we're getting taxes from them. We have a far higher tax increment compared to a town the same size as Branson. So there's some kind of discrepancy in there to me. And like I said, if somebody wants to correct me on this, otherwise I hope I gave somebody out there some different perspective on why people think we need this tourism tax and so forth. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeYeager. We're ready to go on to the next speaker, Madam Clerk.
That's all of our speakers for the public comment.
Okay, thank you. There's some background noise. Someone's got something on, so you might want to check and see if there's something behind you or there's something that's being shared that should be muted. All right, we're ready to move the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, it's my understanding we have a request for items 6 and 9 to be brought down from the consent agenda and placed on the first and second items in the regular agenda. Are there any items the board would like moved down? Mr. Melton?
Mayor, I'd like to move down item number 8 also, please.
Mr. Mayor, could we get that one more time? What's the total of the numbers of those that need to be pulled down?
Number 6, 9, and 8 is what we have now. Mr. Milton has just now let us know that he wants to pull down number 8. Okay. Any others? All right. That concludes, Madam Clerk, go ahead. You've given information for us, and now I'm ready to ask that we vote on the consent agenda.
Your Honor, let me go ahead and get those on the floor for you.
Okay.
Your Honor, the items on the consent agenda are as follows: approval of the Board of Alderman minutes for the March 9th, 2021 regular meeting, acknowledge receipt of Planning Commission minutes from February 2nd, 2021 meeting, acknowledge receipt of Finance Committee minutes for the January 28th, 2021 regular meeting, acknowledge receipt of a petition for consent of annexation for the property located at 1487 State Highway 265, Branson, Missouri. Final reading of Bill number 5968, an ordinance approving the contract with Environmental Systems Research Institute Incorporated for the enterprise license agreement and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. And final reading of Bill number 5970, an ordinance approving a time extension amendment for an intergovernmental agreement between Taney County and the city of Branson regarding the funding of the city's planned 2020 sewer system improvement projects and authorize the mayor to execute the amendment. Your Honor, that concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The floor is open for a motion to approve the items remaining on the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Whitus?
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, will you now provide a roll call vote on the consent agenda?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0. It passes.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move to the regular agenda and do an order. We have item 6 that's been asked to be pulled down. Let's go to item 6, and we'll go to 8, and then we'll go to 9. All right. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction for item number 6?
Your Honor, this is the final reading of Bill number 5969, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement between Taney County and the city of Branson to allow the county to provide funding toward the cost of city's planned 2021 sewer system improvements and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Thank you. You've heard the final reading of Bill number 5969. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to ask for a postponement of this at this time. And I don't know, Lisa, help me out, right time to do that.
We'd need you to make a motion for a postponement to a date certain, Mr. Whitus.
I would like to make a motion to postpone this. I met with the folks at Country Bluff yesterday evening and had Kendall Powell there from the sewer department, kind of reviewed some things, and there's just still a lot of questions from the community there. And so we're going to try to get some more information and provide them with more information before we can move forward with this. Probably, let's say, give us another 30 to 45 days. So whatever that time frame would be, one of the meetings in May.
The first meeting in May is May 11th. Would that work? The regular board meeting?
I'd have to check with Kendall to see if we can get everything that we need by then. So
We can go to a not to exceed day of May 25th. That would be the next meeting. Does
yep,
that work? Okay.
let's do that. Yeah, not to exceed past May 25th.
So we have a motion to postpone to a not to exceed date of May 25th, 2021. So if that potentially could come up before that if you needed.
I'll second.
You had a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Milton, second. All right. Any discussion or questions?
I have one question, and I'll say I do agree with your motion, Jamie, so thank you for that. I too have been in conversations with some of the Country Bluff Estates resident and their HOA president, as well as Mr. Ruda, and I think there does need to be time for more clarification and information gathering. My question to Kendall, if he's the appropriate person to answer this, is by postponing this, are there any consequences to the city of Branson receiving the funded grant? Is there a timeline that we're up against for that?
So the timeline that we're up against is the monies would have to be spent by the end of this year to beginning of December. There's possibilities of extending that time frame as a carryover into 2022. It's not guaranteed. We have to go before the county and ask for that. In the past, they have extended some monies over into the following year, but that is a possibility. Again, this item tonight basically secures the funding for us. You know, as a board, you'll actually have another opportunity to vote upon this, but when we bring a contract to you guys for a contractor. So that is another opportunity to review this and see if you want to proceed forward with it. Again, this is just this item is to secure the monies with the county through their processes. So.
Thank you for answering my question. Based on that, I'm hearing what our Country Bluff Estates residents are requesting, so I support gathering more information before moving forward. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Milton, you had your hand up?
No, as long as you just want to postpone it, that's good.
All right. Kendall, from just a question for the entire Board of Aldermen. Is there a time frame on this part of it, or is it the sooner the better this can be done, or how soon can you get the information together to get this thing started?
Today we worked pretty diligently on gathering information. I have a pretty good generalization I can bring before you guys tonight if you'd like, or again, we can firm up some things and be ready in 30 days.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Kendall. Mr. Milton?
Mayor, I talked to Kendall and some of the homeowners out there yesterday also. And I think this is a bigger picture. As Kendall and I discussed, I would like the time to review, to look at this project from 10,000 feet. And my understanding is this 8-inch extension line would serve the Ruta property next door. However, it would not have enough capacity for any other development. And when I look at the property beyond Ruta's tract, there's a lot more land there that we're going to be annexing. And I think it would be worth taking a look at a 12-inch line, what that would serve, how many more lots that would serve. Kendall mentioned that the lift station this feeds into is sounded like less than half capacity. Kendall, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it has more capacity to put in. And Kendall, do you recall, in addition to this 8-inch line, we're going to have to redo how many feet of 6-inch line?
Mr. Milton, is this your topics you're talking about now? Is this what we're supposed to do by postponing this? Is have discussions about it? Is it pertinent now, or can we wait till the postponement date?
Let's wait.
Okay, thank you.
I was just trying to give some background of why I think that extended time is going to be very useful.
Fine. All right. Are you ready to vote on the postponement? Madam Clerk, would you provide?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, the vote is 6-0. It passes. We may also just want to make an announcement that we did have some speakers on this item, and so we won't be hearing them, so they know that this is postponed.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're ready to move on to the item that we just pulled down, item number 8, I believe. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction?
Your Honor, this is the final reading of Bill number 5971, an ordinance to establish a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest of substantial interest for certain officials.
All right. Let me get back to the information here. All right. The floor is open for a motion to approve the final reading of this bill. Is there a
So moved.
motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Since this was just brought down, we don't have a page for the actions on the item. So I'll use another page that's in here. We've had a motion and a second, discussion time. And since this is a item brought down, discussion from board members. I don't think we'll have anyone who's going to be a speaker that signed up for this, do we, Madam Clerk?
No, we do not. They could have signed up off of the consent, but we have no speakers signed up.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, any board members wish to share? Mr. Milton, you brought it down, so recognize you.
I'm just raising the question of, this has to do with the disclosures from the Board of Aldermen. And regardless of the election results, we know we're going to have at least 2 new aldermen on the board starting at the next meeting. And so I was just raising the question, if we're all going to be voting on approving these rules, these self-imposed rules and regulations regarding disclosures, that it be postponed for the new board that comes on, for them to be involved with approving this.
I'm assuming that Chris Lebec, Mr. Lebec, would you have any comments? This is part of our process for all board members. There's also, through the ethics law, we have to report all kinds of information at the state level, but this is part of our procedure and updating our information for any kind of conflict of interest.
You are
Can you-
correct, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. To answer Alderman Milton's question directly, this is a biannual decision that this board makes to impose or pass this ordinance. What this does is this has the opportunity to provide you all, as well as our chief administrative officer, the city manager, the chief purchasing officer, as well as myself, an opportunity to provide a short form, basically filling this out online instead of a very lengthy process for disclosing any potential conflicts we have. The reason this is before the board today is because the current ordinance expires. It expires at, and I don't have that date in front of me, but I believe it expires this month. So we have to get this one in effect the next month. What I will tell to answer Alderman Milton's question specifically is refer the board to Section 3 disclosure reports. That requires that each elected official candidate for elective office, the chief administrative officer, the chief purchasing officer, and the full-time general counsel shall disclose the following information by May 1st. So the onboarding of new board members, they will have this obligation the next calendar year prior to May 1st. So again, we're trying to keep this thing in line with what's about to get expired so that we do not have a gap. Because again, in order to use this process, we have to have this ordinance in effect and we have to revisit it biannually by state law.
Chris, I thought this had to be reported, I thought it was like sometime in September. Am I missing that?
Yeah, so to answer that question, we're required to pass this by September 15th of every other year. Well, the reason we're bringing it to you today is because that timeline over the years has moved up and up and up to the point where it's about to expire. So we're trying to get out in front of this before it expires. So if you look at Section 6 of this ordinance. This ordinance is going to go into effect if you all decide to pass it today, and it will remain in effect until September 15th of 2023. So again, what we're trying to fix here is we're trying to put this back in sync with that September date, because over the years that time frame has shrunk continuously to the point where we're now dealing with this in March of the calendar year, because the previous biennial ordinance is set to expire by April 1st.
Okay, good enough.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
follow up Mr. Milton's question there, which was a good question. There's nothing in this that changes significantly from previous years, so that everybody out there that is listening to this understands this is regularly necessary and reasonable according to what we've been doing in the past. There's not been anything different that the state has passed that we need to disclose, or any, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Alderman Skanes. This ordinance that we're passing today, or we're asking you to pass today, is a form ordinance that is provided to us by the Missouri Ethics Commission. If you were to actually go back in time and look at the one that was passed 2 years ago, and then the one that was passed 2 years prior to that, this is the exact same model ordinance that they've presented us. So nothing has changed. The state law in this area, Chapter 105, has remained in effect for quite some time, and I can find that exact date if that interests anybody, but nothing's changed in this area for a significant period.
No, just following up in the conversation, are we expecting any changes in this legislative session that you've heard that we would need to readdress this before September?
I have not heard of any substantive changes. Our state legislature right now, as you all are aware, is knee deep in Wayfair legislation. That's the main priority, which benefits all municipalities. So this has not been a topic of concern. But what I will tell you is, if it does become a topic of concern, either this legislative session or next legislative session, the Missouri Ethics Commission has been very good about providing us with updates and guidance on how to go forth. But right now, there's no potential changes to this area of the law.
Last question on that. Let's say they do pass up, and what is their the usual time frame for implementation of compliance on this? 30, 60, 90, 120 days?
Yeah, well, I'll speak very generally on that question, Alderman. Generally, when new laws are signed into effect, the effective date is usually August 28th of the calendar year. That's the normal effective date. Sometimes some laws require either a change in framework, a change in policy, or there has to be what we call state regulations codified behind the laws to actually implement the laws. In that case, there's opportunities for the legislature to build in kind of a timeline. This will not go into effect on August 28th. We're going to pass it. We're going to sign it into a law, but its effective date would be some point in the future. A good example of that would be the Uniform Criminal Code that was passed and worked on for a number of years. That had an effective date of January 1st, 2017, but it was something that was passed into law about 6 months prior on that April 28th date. So the legislature, our government, takes that into account if it does cause substantive changes to agencies and municipalities that are affected.
Okay. Just an FYI, I knew I had it here. Within the last 2 months, Chris Lebeck sent out to us a plain English summary of ethics laws that talks about the Missouri state. And that was sent to all aldermen for them to be able to look through. A part of the section is the conflict of interest section. So we do have backup data for us to look at if you wish to do so. Any other comments or questions? Sensing you're ready to vote, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Dean,
Approve.
Whitus,
Approve.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Yes.
Milton.
Yeah.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes.
All right. Now we're ready to move on to item number 9. Final reading of bill number 5972. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction to this item?
Your Honor, this is the final reading of bill number 5972, an ordinance amending chapter 14 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to animals by repealing said chapter in its entirety and renewing and enacting a new chapter in lieu thereof.
Thank you. Upon hearing through the last meetings of concerns by citizens that they hadn't enough time, plus aldermen expressing concerns, I would like to request a motion to postpone the final reading of this bill 5972 to a date not to exceed April 27th, 2021. Would anyone like?
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Second. Second. All right. We have a motion and a second. Are there any aldermen who would like to speak regarding the postponement? Mr.
So-
Milton?
Mayor, you're the one asking to postpone this?
Yes, I am. And asking for the aldermen then to be able to have time to check with their wards, to get information from their wards so that they can have more information to be able to make a good decision for our citizens.
Okay, I just want to acknowledge that's the same request I made at the last meeting. That was voted down.
Thank you, Mr. Milton. Appreciate your comment. All right, any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
most all the comments that I have received from people really didn't have a problem with the ordinance, but I agree with Mr. Milton that looking forward here that we give the public more of an opportunity. I'd really like to see it, not just us individual aldermen, but let's have a public meeting for discussion and bring some people in, the moms, the dads, and not just the professionals into this, because and I'd also like to see a comparison of this bill with what is already on the books, so folks can understand the changes. I've heard a lot about that.
I agree with that.
Well, obviously, we could bring forth, aldermen have the opportunity to bring forth a recommendation. But at this point in time, we're doing a postponement. So you have time to talk with the folks in your wards. And if you feel like there's a need for additional, then obviously that's what you have the ability to do.
Is there a
Any
date- is there a date certain on this postponement?
April 20, not to exceed April 27th, 2021. And it's on your consent agenda that was sent out to you there. Jeff Matthews is here. Is there any reason that anyone wants to hear anything from Jeff? I guess not at this time, Jeff. I don't see any hands coming up.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, there's a finger. All right,
Bob first. I'm sorry, Larry. I'll go third. Go ahead.
Mr.
Yes,
Simmons.
I'll go. I just got a call today that said the citizen understood that they'd gotten through the news media that we were not allowing beehives in the city limits. And in carefully reading this ordinance, it does not say that we are not allowing beehives. It says we're allowing only honeybee hives. And so I just wanted to make that clear, particularly if there are people here who are expecting discussion on this that might have had that same thought. There are some regulations on those, but they seem to be very sensible and are not restrictive, that you can have up to 5 hives and not be a problem. Thank you.
Good point. Just a comment, Mr. Simmons, that we've already had people reach out, and Chief Matthews has already answered several areas of concern for people. So the process is taking place now.
Mhm.
Any other comments, Mr. Milton?
Good question. And maybe it's for Chief Matthews. Before April 27th, do you have any thoughts of how we're going to include community input on this?
A great question, Mr. Milton, and that would be up to you, the board. If you, the board members, choose to hold a town hall, I can guarantee you that myself and my staff will be there to answer any questions that the citizens may have. But I would prefer, I think that it would be more appropriate for the alderman to schedule those meetings within your wards, and then we would attend as your guest to provide the input that you need.
Mr. Skanes? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Milton, you weren't finished?
Mr. Milton had other question.
Okay.
I think a town hall meeting would be great. So I don't know if we could discuss when we would have that, or maybe within the next week or so, come up with a date and a process of how to have that meeting.
Mr. Milton, I just encourage you to ask administration to set up a time, and the board members would need to vote on anything that we have to, as a team, need to decide. So if you've got a request, bring it like we've done in the past, and it's been available all through the time. Mr. Skanes?
I pull my comment back. It's the chief. Yeah, no. Chief, anything that we've said here tonight has nothing to do with the hard work that you or the staff has done on this. It's been in the comments back on the community, the moms, the pops, the little girls, the little boys that have questions about how this is going to work for them, and they had concerns about fines and other things. And I think that we just need to fully vet this, and that's all. But we appreciate every bit of the work that you guys have done.
I appreciate those comments, Mr. Skanes. My staff, we realize you guys, as the Board of Aldermen for the city of Branson, are the policy decision makers for the city, and we will do whatever your vote comes up.
Thank you. Sensing that you're ready to vote, or Jeff, Mr. C.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, I think what Chief Matthews was saying. It would be up to us to organize the town hall and maybe throw out dates to staff and you guys where you could see if you were available to attend, correct? I think that was a yes.
That would be my recommendation. I saw that the attorney came up a little bit ago. I didn't know if he had a comment about the legal nature of that, but I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, all that I was going to chime in is that we've kind of, again, just as guidance to the board, we've kind of strayed from the motion at hand, which is simply a motion to postpone. So I would encourage the board and the mayor to kind of circle back to what's currently on the floor tonight.
Thank you. We have the motion before us to postpone. You ready for a roll call vote? Let's do so.
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Righty. I think we're ready for a presentation. Item number 10 is presentation of the fourth quarter 2020 financials. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction for this item?
Your Honor, before we go on, I just want to also clarify that we did have some speakers on the last item so that they understand that that was postponed.
Thank you, Clerk. I was going to let you know that we did have, yes, someone there. They had their hand up, so I didn't know how you wanted to handle that, but thank you.
Are we ready to move on to the presentation?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Your Honor, this is the presentation of the fourth quarter 2020 financials for the city of Branson.
Recognize Jamie Roush.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I am in the process of sharing my screen, so one moment, please. Can you all see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, this is the fourth quarter financial update for 2020. This is the all governmental funds, revenues versus expenditures. Can you hear me okay?
You are clear to me. Is any board member having trouble? Seem fine.
I just wanted to check. Okay, so this is all governmental funds, revenues versus expenditures as of December 31st, 2020. We've done a comparison here for you for 2019 versus 2020, and that was due to COVID. We wanted you to see what one of our normal years looked like compared to 2020 and how we came out on top. So if you look, revenues are compared to 2019, this is for all governmental funds. Revenues are at 70.7 million in 2020, and in 2019, they were 83.2 million. Expenditures in 2020 were 73.3 million, and they were 77.7 million in 2019. So that kind of gives you a gauge to see the difference. So the revenue is down about 12.5 million. And I will share with you that about 7.8 million of that was a reduction in our taxes. So about 63% of that difference is a reduction in our taxes. And that is due to COVID. The next one is the general fund revenues by category. And this shows that the license and permits decreased by 273,986 from 2019 and increased 5,562 from 2018. Courts receipts decreased 46,868 from 2019. Leases and rents decreased by 358,848 from 2019. The majority of that was the Highway 76 lease revenue, and then the charges for services. And so one of the caveats that I wanted to point out for you is the charges for services look quite a bit higher. And as I told the Finance Committee about this, there was a $444,000 payment that came in right at the end of December, and this is for period 12. So that got put into miscellaneous. It did get moved out in period 13 when we were truing up our year end. But since we're showing you period 12 right now, it is included in that 1.9 million. Once you take out that 444,000, you're at 1.4 million. So it's very similar to the other 2 years. But I just wanted to share that with you so that you can see the difference. The next one is the general fund year to date. This is excluding your transfer in and your outs. Your revenues are 2.2 million less than 2019, and your expenditures are 249,000 more than 2019. This is your general fund revenues and expenses, including your transfer ins and outs. And a lot of the transfer ins and outs here, you have your subsidies to your parks, you have your subsidy to the public safety, you have your TIF transfers. And so I just wanted to point that out. So the general fund revenues and expenses, that is including all of that. So revenues decreased by 2.2 million from 2019 for the general fund revenues and expenses. Expenditures decreased 2 million from 2019. This is a look at your public safety fund. And this will show you that we've kind of split it up so that you can see where the subsidy comes in. And so for 2020, year-to-date revenues are 5.4 million, and then you add in the subsidy. Now, keep in mind, as of 2020, because of COVID-19, we reduced the subsidy by 25%. So your expenditures are 10.5 million, and then you have your subsidy at 5.9. And that subsidy is also included the 163,000 that we transfer over for code enforcement employees that were reclassified from the general fund to the police department. So I want to share that as well with you. This shows you the gross sales tax for all governmental funds. So the general fund sales tax ended the fourth quarter. We were down 14.7%. Tourism tax, we ended 33.4% down. Transportation tax ended 14.8% down, and public safety ended 14.6% down. Again, it's probably no surprise to you all, but that is due to COVID as well. And this is a picture of your sales tax net of the TIF. So we like to show this net of TIF so that you can see how the rest of the city is doing outside of just the TIF districts. So the general fund sales tax revenue for 2020 was 1.4 million less than 2019, and that's a 16.1% decrease. The net tourism sales tax revenue for 2020 is 3.9 million less than 2019, which is a 33.5% decrease. Here you have the tourism fund, and this is including your transfer ins and outs. Your revenues are 4.3 million less than 2019, and your expenditures and transfer outs are 3 million less than 2019. Here's a picture of your Parks and Recreation Fund. And this also, we do this similar to the way we do the public safety. We divide it so that you can see the portion that's the subsidy and the portion that is operational. And so operating revenues decreased by 396,000 from 2019. And then expenditures decreased from 402,691 from 2019. And keep in mind, we also had to reduce the subsidy. So that one is now 750,000. And here's a look at your water sewer year to date. Your revenues are 124,000 less than 2019. Consumption was down. Keep in mind, we increased the rates and then consumption was down. So our revenues are less. Expenditures are 746,641 less than 2019. A large part of that is due to we stopped all capital. If you all recall that when we started into this COVID, we had some decisions to make and we needed to stop all one-time expenditures and capital to see how the year was going to turn out. And that is a part of that. Okay, so here is some change order summaries. You all, this won't be a surprise to you all because you've already seen these, but as a result of the change orders and the process, I give you a recap, and this is new, so this has started this year. We give you a recap at the end of every year of the change orders that were brought to you, just so that you can see those. So this one was the ACE pipe cleaning, and this was a change order. The original budget was $350,000 due to COVID. They did decrease that amount, and the total change order in dollars was 126,000. They also did a 125-day extension for this contract. We since have the final for that, and I know that's been brought before you, but here's the final picture. The bid and the original contract that came in was 305,000. We did reduce that, making the overall contract 179, and we did even come in less than that. So the project completed at 163,000, and they did meet their second time extension. So that one was worked out very well. The next one was for the Harmony Lane sanitary sewer, and that was a 63-day time extension to allow for the unexpected situations, and due to COVID, we had to allow for that time extension, and you'll see that a lot. And so on this one, unfortunately, they went, I believe, they went over their time extension, and as a result, I believe it was 19 days over their time extension, and so we had to charge them liquidated damages for their time extension. So it was $9,500, and that reduced the final cost of the project to $187,000. But that is finalized, and that one was taken care of as well. And then here's the last one, and this is Morris Hospitality sanitary sewer reimbursement. And the original contract was $51,473, and you can see it all there. And they were given a time extension again, and the time extension was $181,000, and they have until June 30th to complete that. So we're not finalized with that one, but that will end the change order review. And so if there's any questions, I'm happy to take those right now.
Jamie, thank you. We have no speakers, so this would be Alderman's time to ask questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Skanes.
Oh, are we ready for Alderman comments, sir?
Yeah.
For edification purposes, because I get emails and telephone calls, we all do, that are concerned about the impact of COVID from 2020. But I'd like to be able to, for Jamie to please describe for us the financial approval process that we all had to go in, from party-based budgeting to budget and finance to the full board. Could you sort of go through that process to show or indicate the type of scrutiny that these items all went through?
Specifically for COVID, is that what you're asking?
No, just for what we went through 2020 in order to reduce the budget down and to make sure that we went through the processes to totally scrutinize this budget and what was all spent in 2020.
Sure. So really, as a result of COVID, we had some tough decisions to make. We knew the entire country, not just our city, was going to come to a halt. And so we had, as a result of our budget, we knew that that wouldn't sustain in this year. And so we had some decisions to make. So we got together, we went through, and we looked at worst case scenario to see if this is the worst case scenario outcome, can the city sustain that? And that was really the question on the table for us all. And so worst case scenario, and I'm sure all of you know this as well as I do, worst case scenario is that our summer, our busiest months are shut down completely, right? So that's what we went forward with. We went forward with the May and the June and the July, those months completely shut down. So we looked at 5 months total, and we wiped out that tax to zero to come up with, can we sustain? The calculation there was a 45% loss, a 45% decrease. Can we sustain that? And how do we sustain that? So those were some of the questions that we looked at. How do we sustain that is priority-based budgeting. Because we put that into place many, many years ago. What that allows us to do is separate our one-time expenditures from our ongoing expenditures. So the city has to maintain the ongoing operations for our community and our public. So we knew that that's not the first place that we're going to go to decrease. Where do we want to go to decrease that will have the least impact on our city as all possible? And that was our one-time expenditures. So the one-time expenditures are our capital items, our transfers to internal service funds to help accommodate other things. And then we also looked at, okay, what else do we need to do? And we froze open positions. We did those things as well. And so what that was able for us to do is then we had a starting point to say, okay, now we have a starting point. We know we're going to do this, freeze positions. We know we're going to cut one-time expenditures. We're going to cut capital. And once we do that, knowing that we're going to wipe out this revenue over here, how is that going to work for our city? So it was a 45% decrease, but it allowed us, and I presented those financials to y'all back in May. That went through the board, that went through approval, it went through the finance committee, but we were able to reach a conclusion that if we sustained a 45% decrease, the city would be able to manage due to the reserves that we had held in place. And so I'll fast forward to now what we're presenting to you. Thank the good Lord, the city did not have to sustain a 45% decrease. Our tourism tax took a hit of about 33.4%, as you saw, but our general sales tax and the public safety sales tax and the transportation sales tax was down 14.7 instead of the 45%. So while we're still down in comparison to prior years, we did much better than what we had thought we were going to, or what our crystal ball had given us for COVID, because no other no other place was able to determine what the future held because we hadn't been there before. So that was worst case scenario. That's how we went about it. Once the board approved of that and they saw that COVID financial, then we moved forward with that new budget in place. And so that required us to reduce the subsidies by 25%. We reduced all of our one-time capitals, one-time expenditures, and that helped us sustain going forward. We froze positions, and all of that is out on the web and under the COVID financial. If anybody would like to take a look at it or like to come in and talk to me, I'm happy to answer any questions. But that's really the process that we had to go through. And so we changed modes from going and working against the 2020 budget. We started working against the COVID 2020 budget, which changed things a little bit. So, and that's why we're here where we are today, and that's what I'm presenting before you today. Did that help answer your question?
Yeah, I have two more. And again, we get a lot of calls.
Yes, certainly.
And one of them was concerned about our public safety fund. And I actually had several of them said that we've been transferring money into the general revenue from public safety. And I've said, no, you can't do that. So would you sort of explain how that public safety fund transfers for general fund goes into that so we can allay the fears?
Certainly. So actually, the general fund transfers money into the public safety fund. So the public safety fund gets a 50-cent sales tax similar to the transportation fund. Those monies come in and they go straight to the public safety fund. And that is because it's a special revenue tax. It's a special revenue fund now. So that fund became their operational. So all their operations come out of that fund. The tax goes directly into that fund. The general fund then turns around and transfers. It's typically $7.6 million from the general fund monies into the public safety fund to offset their operations. And that was agreed upon back when the taxes were put into place. So that goes in there as well. And you just saw, there was a few employees that transferred from the planning department down to the police department for code enforcement. We also transfer the amount of those monies into the public safety fund as well to offset that. So essentially, and then as you all heard the auditor say, they also spoke on that. We don't transfer money out of the public safety fund into the general fund. It's actually the opposite, from the general fund into the public safety. Does that help answer that question?
Well, yeah. And again, these questions that come to all of us, one of them that I got hit with real hard, and they asked me to ask you, do you think we've done enough to control our costs for 2021? They knew the issues and problems we had for 2020. Do you feel that staff and our board has done enough to control those costs for 2021? Are we online?
Oh, yes. And I will say that we've done more than enough. And because I will tell you that we have other cities calling us. And so I think the board and the staff, we all pulled together. And I will tell you the expenditures and the financials that I just presented really show you because we had a reduction in revenue, they did a really good job of going in, reducing those expenditures by department to help out in every way they could. So I would say absolutely, yes, we've done more than enough. And once the final financials come out, you will see the end result is much better than what you anticipated. So that should prove right there that we've done more than enough. Yes, sir.
The last question was, they asked me, do we have any areas of concern moving forward for 2021? The public, obviously, we have to be as transparent as possible. It's taxpayers' money. Any areas of concern that we have in 2021 on any of our funds, or are they consistent across the board?
Well, I guess the one thing that I would say is we need to make sure that we are keeping an eye on our operational expenses. So the operational that increase our ongoing year after year after year, those are the ones that we need to really take a look at. After some of the last weeks that we've had in Branson, and you've seen lines standing everywhere, restaurants are 3-hour waits. That is extremely encouraging for 2021. I wouldn't have said that back in January. So I'm telling you, from my professional opinion, I think 2021 is going to be much better than we had originally anticipated. So I'm looking forward to that just based off of how spring break was going. That was very encouraging. So I would just recommend that we just keep going with priority-based budgeting, keep looking at what the priorities are, keep doing what we can to make sure that we're focusing on that community plan, the priorities that we are given by the public, and how we just really go down through that process, and the department heads go through that process. You all have gone through that process. So just keep focusing on that. That's what it's there for, to really look at the operations, keep those down, keep the ongoing costs as much as all possible. And that frees up some money for much needed capital and one-time expenditures. Is that helpful?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from Alderman?
Jamie,
Yes, sir.
would you remind everybody what we have projected for 2021?
Regarding what? Which topic?
What projected budget for 2021?
The projected entire budget for 2021. Oh my goodness.
No, actually, the real question would be, I know we projected down 45% in 2020.
Okay.
And so in 2021, what are we just initially looking at?
Thank you for that clarification. So what we did during the budget process is we did not bring it back fully up to the 2020 where we had it. We went in between. And so 2021 budget was a stair step. And then 2022 should have been back up to where we had originally budgeted in 2020. Does that help? Because we were unsure of where it was going to go. Now, at the end of 2021, hopefully we're wrong and we're back up there where we were. But that's how we planned it, to try to make sure that we were conservative with your funds.
Okay.
Does that help answer your question?
Sure.
Okay.
And Jamie, I'd be remiss not sharing with you that we have a a very attractive, very well done 2021 annual budget, full of information and answer a lot of questions. Even the questions that were asked at the beginning of the meeting could be found in the budget, and it's there for people to look at and see. It's a very thorough process, and aldermen and citizens and different people from the community are involved on the finance committee, and they see and hear this information in advance of our board meetings so that we can make recommendations from the finance committee to our board. And I thank you for the thorough process that you go through. And this is an impressive document. We're a big company. The city of Branson is a good-sized organization, and the work that's done to make sure that we put out all of the information is there. So thank you.
Thank you.
There's no vote on this. It was a report and presentation, so I believe that we're now ready to move on unless there's any other question from Alderman. Right, ready to move to item number 11.
Your Honor, this is the
Yeah. Okay.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill number 5973, an ordinance amending Chapter 58, Article 10 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to communicable diseases and face coverings.
Right. Begin with a staff report from Chris Lebec, and then he has, I believe, some reports from medical professionals.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. As you know, we have been waiting patiently for the development and the deployment of a vaccine. We are at the point now that it is readily available with a concrete timeline that has been pushed out by the governor's office. As a result, I've been asked to bring this bill before the board for consideration, the consideration of replacing our current face covering mitigation strategy with the vaccination mitigation strategy currently outlined by our state government. This ordinance, if it's approved, follows the timeline put out by the governor on March 18th and sets the expiration date of May 9th for our face covering ordinance. As detailed in the staff report, staff does recommend approval of this ordinance. The reason for that, primarily, we have seen an increase in vaccination levels, and those increases are steadily increasing. As of today, Missouri has 22.5% of the population that has initiated vaccination, 15.9% of Taney County, and 19.7% for Stone County. I bring Stone County into the picture because, again, we have a lot of give and take within the respective communities. Mr. Mayor, at this point, I would ask you to recognize Dr. Essery from Cox Health and allow him the opportunity to provide some insight from our local hospital system. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Essery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some prepared comments and I'd be happy to take questions. This past year has represented an unprecedented time in our community. I want to start by thanking each and every one of you because I believe your actions have made a difference in keeping our community safe. I think you've prevented long-term health consequences for our neighbors, and ultimately you have saved lives. We know that masking makes a real difference in the transmission of the coronavirus. Wearing a mask keeps one's respiratory droplets from spreading, helping avoid more cases of COVID-19 from occurring. The data that I'm referring to comes right here from the Ozarks and has been published by the CDC, and we've discussed that at previous Alderman meetings. At Cox Health, we closely follow the positivity rates for COVID testing through our own lab. We look at Branson, where we have a mask mandate, as well as the parts of Taney County that do not have mask mandates. Last week, the positivity rate for Branson residents was just over 1%, while parts of the county who do not have a masking ordinance averaged 8 times that. We want Branson to be seen as a top tourist destination. We want to be recognized as a safe place to travel, just as we were when Forbes named us number 4 on their list of top 10 places to travel and avoid the pandemic. We can keep that reputation by keeping COVID cases low. Masking is an easy way to keep disease from spreading. As more people come to Branson, it is likely without a mitigation strategy, the number of cases will begin to rise again for both locals and for visitors. In addition to putting our community at risk, this could possibly hurt Branson's desirability as a tourist destination. Now the question arises, how do vaccinations play into this? we are very optimistic about what vaccinations will offer our community and believe that this can bring an end to the pandemic. At Cox Health alone, we've seen dramatic decreases in the COVID-19 cases in our employees after initiation of vaccination programs. In our peak in late 2020, we were seeing over 15 new employee cases a day. Most of those are infected outside of work. By comparison, we see about 1 case a day in February and March. And in Branson, we've only seen 2 cases in our employees in the whole month of March compared to 80 in December. The problem that we currently face is having enough vaccine. We want to be able to give a dose to everyone who wants one. However, as our supply rapidly increases and the state continues to open up vaccinations to the general public, we believe that in the coming weeks, individuals in our community who are interested in vaccination will be able to get one. This is why I believe we need a masking ordinance for just a bit longer until we get sufficient numbers of our community members vaccinated. If we stay on our current trajectory with cases, as well as with vaccination efforts, we believe that removing masking mandates will be an achievable goal. We are, however, mindful and leery of the increased infections and hospitalizations occurring in much of Europe. These are likely due to the B.1.1.7 variant. Paris is out of ICU beds. The Robert Koch Foundation in Germany is projecting the demand for beds in Germany will be exceeded by the end of the month. The B.1.1.7 variant, which has already been identified in Missouri, is likely the cause of this and will likely be the dominant variant in Missouri. When I spoke to this board last fall, I talked about masking as a bridge to vaccination. Those vaccination efforts are in full swing, and to date, we've given 12,406 doses to Taney County residents. There are still residents who want to have this protection, but have been unable to get a shot as their tier is not open yet. Giving us this additional time will allow those residents the opportunity to protect themselves and their loved ones. I thank you for your consideration of these points. I believe your courage in this moment will ultimately help keep more people safe and bring us into a brighter tomorrow. Thank you, and I would entertain any questions.
Dr. Usry, do any of the aldermen have any questions?
Your Honor,
Yes.
we probably should get this on the floor.
Okay, thank you. You're right. I guess I'm anxious to get it on the floor. Aren't I?
We just had staff reports right this very moment. So.
All right. Is there another staff report though? Is what I'm looking for.
Mayor Akers, I'd just like to add one more comment for the board before we put this on the floor as a connection to the staff report. Just so the board is aware, this ordinance simply repeals what's currently in place, and it does not prevent individuals from exercising their right to choose to wear a mask for the safety of others. Furthermore, this ordinance does not prevent local businesses and business owners from mandating their own safety requirements, including the use of face coverings and social distancing, not only by both their staff, but by their customers. I just want to make sure that that's clear to the board, so there's a full understanding here when this goes on the floor. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other staff reports? All right. Then at this point in time, you've heard the first reading of Bill 5973. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
There's a motion to approve.
Point
Mr.
of
C.
order. I want
And
a
a
point of order.
We're in the process, Larry. Be just a moment. You'll be able to discuss. Is there a second?
I'll second it for the conversation.
Second. All right, Mr. Skanes. All right. Now we move on to the where we made a motion and we've approved. Do we have any speakers on this tonight, Madam Clerk?
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Milton.
For clarity, and this is for Chris, what we just voted on and approved, this language is different than the language that was on our agenda that was posted for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Is that correct?
That is, Mr. Mayor, would you like me to answer that question?
Yes, please.
Okay, just so the board is aware, we published the agenda with item number 11 on March 17th. That version, to Alderman Milton's point, is different than the version today. The reason why is because the governor had a press conference at approximately 3:30 on March 18th, as was alluded to by Mayor Akers during our study session. During that press conference, he announced the state vaccination plan for the rollout of both phase 2 and phase 3. As everybody is aware, phase 3 includes all adults within the state of Missouri. And those dates, as articulated in the amended staff report, include phase 2 goes into effect on Monday, March 29th, phase 3, April 9th, 2021, which is a Friday. So the staff report was updated to reflect those facts and also provide a link to not only that plan through MissouriStopsCovid.com, but also additional information with regards to the timeline for vaccination under both the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccination. And a link was provided to the CDC page with regards to that. As a result of that, I was directed to modify the ordinance to factor the governor's comments, the governor's plan into effect. And this was posted outside of the 24-hour requirement on Monday. And again, the board was updated with regards to this information.
Okay, Chris, so the amendment or the change to the ordinance that was initially published, that changed at what, in the evening on Monday? Is that right? When was when was the ordinance changed and published?
The ordinance was changed on publish. I can changed on Monday. I'm going to ask Ms. Westfall to advise the board when it was published because she's responsible for those duties.
It was late afternoon. I think it was probably about 4 o'clock. It was what, as Attorney Lebeck said, it was within our 24-hour requirement.
Okay, so part of the point is we just made a first and a second on this changed amendment. And the public, I'm fairly confident, the public does not know what we just approved. What the public has seen in this ordinance was tonight was a scheduled first reading, second reading, and it would take effect immediately. What I think is important before we move forward is to share what the changes are. Section 4 in the original ordinance said this would take effect immediately. What we're discussing right now, that I'm going to tell you, not many people know or aware that we're talking about a possible second reading on an ordinance that will take effect May 9th. Is that correct?
I guess I don't understand the statement, Alderman Milton. Let me walk through what the changes were. Okay. First change on the staff report was bullet point number 3 was updated with the current percentages of citizens who have initiated COVID-19 vaccination at the state, Taney, and Stone County levels. Bullet point number 5 was added, summarizing the recent announced COVID-19 vaccination plan pushed out by Governor Parson. A link was provided to the source of this information. Bullet point number 6 was added, providing the new effective date of May 9th for the ordinance as it relates to Governor Parson's announcement and timeline for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccination intervals. A link was provided for the source of that information as well. Specific to the ordinance, an additional whereas clause was added summarizing the rollout of the state vaccination plan for phase 2 and phase 3. The effective date was changed to May 9th, 2021 from immediately to account for the statewide vaccination plan. These changes were posted to the public in compliance with state law, as Ms. Westfall indicated, more than 24 hours prior to the board meeting, and they were publicly available for anybody to view. Again, this is somewhat of a moving target, Alderman Milton, and we wanted to get the most current and the most accurate information before the board, given the fact that the governor announced a statewide vaccination plan.
Okay, when you say moving target.
Mr. Milton, part of your discussion right now is what we would do when we aldermen discuss. We've had a motion and a second. Now we're supposed to be open for anyone from the public that wants to speak first.
But
Would you,
my point of order, Mayor, is we're about to ask the public for their comments. And I'm going to suggest to you, the majority of the people that are about to speak are unaware of these changes to this ordinance. I'm trying to let the public know before they start to speak what it is that we just proposed, because they don't know. Our
Right.
agenda on our
do you
website,
feel like you do now?
our agenda on the website did not say it's revised. So anybody that read this ordinance on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday morning has no idea that this has been changed. I just think it's important for them to know that what these changes are that we're talking about. So when they have started asking questions, we are not voting on something tonight to repeal it immediately, which the public believes. We're talking about something that's going to be effective May 9th. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
Okay. You feel like they now have been given notice?
We'll find out when they start asking questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, Your Honor, we do have speakers. We have Patrick Crisp, who was, I don't know if Chuck can tell us if he's on or not. He didn't come on for public comment.
Do not see Mr. Crisp in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker would be Jansen Crane.
Okay.
His address is 2958 Vineyards Parkway by Branson.
Mr. Crane, can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
All right.
5 minutes will start now. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
won't take
So sorry. 3 minutes. I apologize.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to take the full 3 minutes even. I think I've made my stance pretty clear on where I am on the mask mandate and everything. So I'm just going to reiterate that I'm totally in favor of repealing this, to the point that Mr. Milton brought up. I did know it was changed just simply because I went back and looked again today when I was preparing my comments. But I do understand that several people that maybe signed up to speak here after me may not have been aware of those changes, like he was saying, because I was taken off guard when I went back and reread it, not knowing anything had changed. And I myself was thinking, did I just misread it first, or did I, what happened? So thank you, Mr. Milton, for bringing that out, that it was changed. So on that note, I do, as it is written, other than that change, I would say that I would love for somebody to make an amendment to make this back to that original one, to where it is repealed immediately. I would just submit to you that this is a chance for you guys to do the right thing that should have been done last year at this time, where you can actually vote for the will of the people. So we said a year ago we didn't want it. Now is a chance here before the election to go ahead and make that right, and make it to pass this, but also to pass it with an amendment saying that it'll be repealed immediately. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Buddy Jagger, 106 South Drive, Branson, Missouri.
Mr. DeJager, can you hear us okay? Looks like you're muted.
Oh, okay. How about now?
We can hear you. I'll start your clock. 3 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Good evening again. Speaking on another topic tonight, as I went through several of the item numbers. I mean, clearly it doesn't mean much for the citizens to speak out on what we believe is factual on this whole mask mandate situation. You bring your own personal, professional. I do want to refer all of you to America's Frontline Doctors. If some of you just think we come up with random evidence, there are plenty of doctors on that site that are reputable, and that's where many of us get our information from to dispute needing these face masks. Furthermore, I would also like to commend Larry for letting us know, as I did not know I could check to see what was in the proposed amendment and did not know that there was a delayed date on that as well. So seeing as it's not even getting pushed through until May, I think is ridiculous. This should be instant. You're all saying that the numbers are going down. Half of the town, or many of the town, are not really wearing their masks at this point in time anyway. And regardless, if they are wearing the mask, y'all should pay attention to how people are wearing it. If they're only halfway covering their face and doing a poor job doing it, is it really doing any good? If you're going to do something, you might as well do it good or do far close to perfect. And obviously it's not being done that way, and our numbers are still going down. It is just crazy that you're wanting to postpone this after the election. I do hope that when we get new candidates in office, that they will look at it immediately to even amend it further to remove it before May. I appreciate all your time and hope that you can make changes to this and just remove the mask mandate immediately. Thank you.
Believe we're ready for the next speaker, Madam Clerk.
We have no other speakers on this matter.
Ready?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
This is Mr. Milton. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote on the original ordinance that was posted on May 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st. That would be the changes. I'm trusting all the aldermen were aware of what the initial ordinance said and what this new ordinance says. So my motion is simply, I would like to make a motion to vote on the ordinance that reflected the language that said, after this is approved, this ordinance will take effect immediately.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Milton, I see no second for your motion.
I see
Dies
that.
for a second. All right. Further discussion. Any other comments in regard to this motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. Well, the motion's been made and seconded that we're going to vote here now. Are we ready to vote here now?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I don't know if Jeff had a comment or Jamie had, that their microphones are.
I wanted to make a motion, Mayor.
Okay. I'm sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
I went and got my, basically my motion would be, I would like to take the May 9th date and push it to the 23rd at midnight to make it effective Monday, the 24th. I went up and got my vaccination today, the first vaccination. I was hoping that Lisa Marshall would be there, and she was. So during my 15 minutes of sitting there time, which turned into a 30-minute conversation, she was aware of the May 9th date. So she told me that she's been, since this tier for our frontline workers has not opened up yet, we still have a lot of people that need to be vaccinated, and they only allot her so much for the specific tiers. So even before she had the discussion with me, she was trying to run it up the chain, since our season is approaching so quickly, to try to get that tier opened up so we could get our frontline, wait staff, cooks, ticket takers, that type of stuff vaccinated before then. So she said, if May 9th is it, she said she'll take that. But I really think if we gave it to that 24th date, we're basically given 61 days, 2 months for us to get those people vaccinated. And she will take this up now as an additional need to try to expedite this, is because we're going to give her time to do such.
There's been a motion to move the date, and again, the date, Jeff, is what, May what?
May 23rd, midnight for effect on, or however it's set up. Lebec, Chris could tell us.
Okay.
So if I understand it,
Is there a second to that motion?
Wait,
I'll second that.
Wait, please.
hold on a minute.
What?
Could we get a clarification on the motion and the date?
Okay.
And thank you.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, can I get some clarification first?
Sure.
And let's try to get this framed properly. If I understand it correctly, Alderman C, you're looking at line 63 of the ordinance, which currently reads Board of Aldermen and approval by the mayor on May 9th, 2021. And you are asking that that line be changed by motion to Board of Aldermen and approval by the mayor on May 23rd, 2021 at 12 a.m. If my time's right, is that what I understand, what I'm hearing you say?
Correct. I mean, I know we've done this time before. So did we do it at midnight or did we do it at 8 o'clock on the 24th, 8 a.m.?
I think you can just simply say May 24th, 2021, because that's the date it will be repealed.
Gotcha. Then that would be the date that I would want to make the motion with.
With that clarification, is there a second?
I second that.
There's a second. Motion's been made and second. Any additional discussion? We're going to vote then on the motion to change the date. Julia King.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate everyone's discussion and input on this, and I appreciate the information that's been presented to us by Dr. Ussery. I'm just going to be very clear that I've probably been the most predictable on this particular item. I do work in healthcare. I have for the last 15 years. And personally, I cannot vote for something that conflicts or contradicts with what I'm going to get up and do for a living the very next day. So supporting our healthcare provider. So I think the more time we have out, the better. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think the numbers are going in the right direction. I think the vaccine numbers are going in the right direction. But I personally can only support voting to repeal the mask mandate on a day that those numbers are in front of me, not on a day that I would look into a crystal ball for. So no disrespect to anyone wanting to push this out. I just want to be clear on where I stand with the community.
Okay. So you're sharing that you will vote not to repeal it is what your stance is. Okay.
That is correct.
All right. Any other comments? Any other board members?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Skanes.
A significant amount of calls that I've gotten in emails and contacts are more inconsistent with what we're talking about is pushing this out until the inoculations have gone further down the line. There's a concern when I was getting my shot, which you see every once in a while I rub it, it hurts. But the medical personnel that I was talking to, first of all, thanked us for what we were doing to protect the community. I felt very refreshing after reading the troll comments on Facebook that come out about us and the horrible names that we've all been called. They're not, it doesn't do any good for public discourse. I think we did the right thing, but pushing it out to the 24th of May and giving us that extra amount of time to get people inoculated, I think is good news.
Okay. Mr. Milton?
Question for Chris. Chris, would you just verify that if this does get approved tonight and pushed out to May 24th, that the board won't necessarily need to wait till May 24th. They can readdress this prior to that date. Is that correct?
Readdress what, Alderman Milton? I guess I don't understand the question.
If this gets voted on and it's pushed out to May 24th, prior to May 24th, the board can bring this same ordinance up and amend it or change it. It doesn't necessarily have to wait till May 24th.
Well, what I can tell you is right now this is a bill. So if the board does a second read tonight and ends up being an ordinance that is passed, a future board can bring a subsequent ordinance or bill before the board, discuss that about changing the timing of the repealing.
Okay, so it's a yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are we ready to vote on the date change?
So Your
Madam
Honor,
Clerk?
we're voting on the amendment to change the date from May 9th to May 24th, 2021.
Correct.
King?
Please roll call. Yeah.
King?
No.
Whitus?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Milton?
No.
C?
Yes.
Your Honor, it passes 4-2.
Right. The date change as presented here at the meeting is to the 24th of May. Now we're ready to vote on the original ordinance with the date changed to the 24th. Any additional discussion? Julie King.
Yes, just again, complete respect for the decision that the majority of the board will make. But again, predictable and consistent with where I stand as a healthcare professional. I will not support undoing the mask mandate ahead of time.
Your stance is you don't want it, you're not wanting to vote to end it. And so I understand that. All right. Any other? Then Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on the ordinance as amended?
King?
No.
Whitus?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Milton?
If this was the original ordinance, I would have voted yes.
Just
but
please vote, Mr. Milton, please.
I cannot vote for an extension, so it's no.
C?
Yes.
It passes 4-2.
Okay, thank you. Now, the question, do we want to look at a second? Jeff C., you had your hand up.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to move to bill number 5973 for its second and final reading tonight. The way I see this is the arguments for or against have not changed since the beginning of all this. It's pretty black and white. We're either going to repeal this or we're going to extend it. You know, we're pivoting from the masks as mitigation to now we're trying to pivot to vaccine as the mitigation for this for the COVID virus. So we had to make a tough decision back then, and I think doing this tonight, getting the clock started to get an end date there on May 24th, it's fair and equitable to everybody involved.
There's been a motion. Second read. Yes.
Yeah, well,
there's a motion for a second read. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All right. Ready for discussion. Mr. Milton, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really confused, and I'll be very interested to hear Bob Simmons' input. What's been voted on and approved is to make something effective in 60 days from today. I've always believed we've held second reads for things that are emergencies, things that simply cannot wait. And so I'm really dumbfounded on why we would have a second read on something that is not effective for 60 days. And I yield my time to Bob Simmons.
Do you want to speak, Mr. Simmons? Yes.
Yes, Mayor. I spent most of my time on the board trying to avoid second reads so that the public's fully informed and has their time to discuss these things. And I really don't want to go off the board voting for a second read that I really see no need for. I think the 2 weeks is a normal course of events. It'd be the same board. It'd be the short board meeting where the board's going to change, but this would be done under the consent agenda, and therefore it would be done with the same board. I don't see a need for the second read tonight, so I will be voting no on that as usual.
Brings up a legal question, Chris, if you could, if we do vote to do it in 2 weeks and not do the second read, would they be able to be pulled down at that time?
Well, as you know, we're going to have basically I guess the way I would describe it is a split board meeting. We would have this board meet and then wind down, and then the new board meet. So this board would still have this potentially as unfinished business and can be addressed on that date.
And it could be pulled down from a consent agenda.
Correct.
All right, thank you. All right, any other comments?
Another legal question, Chris, since it is a split board, and I know this will be old business, can the new board bring this up?
As was with this one, any board member can ask or have a bill sponsored. So kind of circling back to your original question about if this goes through and you don't like it and you want the date changed, you can ask or administration or the city attorney to draft a new bill, and you can sponsor that to the board, as is your ability under Branson Municipal Code.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Simmons.
Mayor, I would similar, the opposite of what was brought up before. Between now and May the 23rd or 24th, when this goes into effect, anyone could also bring up, if the situation changes, if the spring break brings a tremendous change to us and we see a surge here, the board at any time before then could also extend this time period. So I think they need to be flexible and realize that they've got that option open to them, and deal. I'm very sympathetic to Julia's position on this, having been a long time Branson board member at the hospital. I would also feel much more comfortable if we were seeing the final proof in the pudding before we made these votes. But I think this is something to give people time to prepare, and will give them enough time to transition, enough time for the public to become used to it, and maybe nationwide the public will be more used to it by that time. So that's why I voted for it. However, I just want to make plain that anyone could bring this up at any time between now and May the 24th. The board members could. Thank you.
So at this point, yes, Julia.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for recognizing that, Alderman Simmons. So again, this is no disrespect to anyone on the board, and I completely respect what the majority moves forward with. But because of my involvement in the healthcare community and wanting to see the data the day of a vote, I will not be supporting this particular item. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you all for your candor and your clear communication. I think we're ready to vote. The vote is to whether to have a second read. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
King,
No.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
No.
Skanes,
Yes.
Milton,
No.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, we have a tie vote, 3-3. It would be your vote to break the tie.
And my vote is to put it on the books, and then knowing that we can, has been brought up, bring up, seek to make change. I'm going to vote for the second read.
Vote passes 4-3, and we would be ready for the second read, Your Honor.
Do we need to actually read anything additional, or just?
Yes. Would you like me to proceed with that?
Yes, please.
Your Honor, this is the final reading of Bill number 5973, an ordinance amending Chapter 58, Article 10 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to communicable diseases and face coverings. And just as a reminder, this contains the amendment that was made earlier.
We've heard staff reports. I'm assuming that at this point in time, unless there's additional comments or for this vote from Alderman, that we'd proceed to have a roll call vote.
Your Honor, we will need a motion to get this on the floor for the final reading, please.
Okay, all right. So you've heard the second reading of bill number 5973. Madam Clerk, please now provide a roll call vote so we can vote.
We'll need the Alderman to make a motion to put that item on the floor, please.
Oh, at the top. Yes, thank you. Is there an Alderman who wishes to put this on the floor as Bill read 5973 for its final reading and state
So
reason?
move.
There has to be a reason. Jeff, state the reason for why you want it to be final reading.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, we're on the final reading. We're okay if he can just make that motion and.
Okay, all right.
And
The
a
note
second.
said reason. Okay, thank you.
Yes, he already did that. Thank you.
Okay, we've had the motion. Is there a second for the final read?
Second.
All right, there's a second. All right. Now, Madam Clerk, would you please prepare for a roll call? We'll get through this.
Okay, Your Honor, we did have a speaker that requested to speak on this final read tonight, and it was also Patrick Crisp, and I'll just go ahead and make sure he hasn't come on through chat.
Just take a peek to double check here. No, I do not see him.
Okay. Any Alderman, any additional comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's back to what I discussed earlier. We knew we couldn't keep this mask ordinance on ad infinitum. The majority of the telephone conversations and personal conversations I have, folks do want the mask ordinance off. I don't think any of us truly wanted to run this forever, but most of the businesses said they needed time. They were concerned. The people in the lodging industry were quite concerned because of the steps they have taken in order to sanitize the facilities. But I think that Jeff was right on about extending it out far enough to get these people immunized so that we can work and wait on these guests that come in and serve them, and they can feel safe that a significant amount of this population has been immunized. And I think that's real important.
All right, thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah, Mr. Milton, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just confused how 30 days ago, this board felt like we were nowhere near close. And then it's put up tonight as a read to repeal the mask mandate, effective immediately with a second vote. And within 24 hours, we are now voting on something to extend it for 60 days and giving that a final read. I guess I'm just dumbfounded. So I can't vote for anything that's going to extend this for one more day.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Dean,
No.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Yes.
Milton,
No.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, it passes 4-2.
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion and deliberation. I realize the concerns and thoughts that you all have. Obviously, this last year has been a very challenging year. And I think what we've just done and what you aldermen have talked about and done is taken a position that we're ready, but we think there's time that needed to be taken to get vaccines in place and get businesses being able to plan ahead. One business very clearly told me that, what am I going to say now? Because I've been telling people the reason they have to wear the mask is because you all have an ordinance here. I want to continue to keep the mask. What am I going to tell them? Well, they need time to plan how they're going to work that and how they're going to deal with it. Many corporate positions, corporate stores have taken the position to continue with masking. But I want to go back and remind you all that at any time an alderman can bring forth and get the administrative staff and the legal to bring up a change or a new ordinance. And so that's, to me, the real ability that each of you all have to be able to do that. So I appreciate your deliberation. I think the community understands we've taken a stand. We want to get away from the masking, but we want time to make sure that we do it safely. And that's what's happened with all this process. So thank you very much. Okay, go to item number 12, please. First reading of bill number 5974. Madam Clerk.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5974, an ordinance amending the adopted 2020 budget for the city of Branson to adjust monies for an additional expense in the debt service fund.
All right. We begin with a staff report from Jamie Roush.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. This is a budget amendment, and it's pretty much the cleanup work for the year end for 2020. This budget amendment is due to a debt service reserve calculation for the arbitrage rebate that was done. Just to give you a bit of history there, if you recall back in June, we talked about the 2005A being paid off by the $7 million debt service reserve amount. Due to refinancing in 2015. This item goes back to that, in that the debt service reserve, every 5 years, IRS requires an arbitrage rebate calculation on the bond issues. This bond, the calculation was done and it was $26,300.61. But the good news here is that once that $7 million was paid off, the debt service reserve restrictions were released. We had about $41,000 left over. And so that amount accounted for the $26,300. So this amendment is just accounting for it on our books through 2020, which left an amount of $14,692 to go back into the waterfall to be able to pay down additional debt. So it's good news. We just need to make sure that we go through the proper process and get it on our books for this this past year. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Well, you've heard the first reading of bill number 5974. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So move.
Second.
Second. All right. We have a motion and a second. Apparently, we have a speaker tonight. I just want to remind the speakers that they're speaking specifically on this topic, either in favor or against, and the reasons that they have for speaking on this topic. So any speakers that we have out there, remember, you're talking about specifically on this topic. I appreciate that. Now, Madam Clerk, would you introduce tonight's speakers?
We have one speaker on this item. It's Bo DeJager, 106 South Drive, Branson, Missouri.
Mr. DeJager, can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. I'll start your 3 minutes now.
Great.
Mr. DeJager, did you hear my description of what you're to talk on?
I sure did. I'm glad you pointed out for me, Mayor. I'm glad that I needed that, since you don't tell anybody that on any other items. So I appreciate you interrupting my time as well. I just, not really much I wanted to say on this issue because I don't know too much about it. I do just want to keep making comments and raising up that we have such a major debt problem with the city. And without looking at the books, I know Jamie Roush is trying to keep track of all that. It is just very alarming to see how much debt that there is, and without getting more opinions and trying to work on narrowing some of that debts down. To finish up here, I do want to make a mention and shout out to everybody that's on YouTube. I highly recommend all you taking a second and checking out all the comments that are on there and just seeing for yourself just what's been going on with the citizens and what they are appealing to and just what they stand behind. And I think you'll get a very good indication of what decisions you've made tonight and everything going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeJager. All right, no other speakers. We're ready now. Any alderman have any comments on Jamie's recommendation?
Mr. Mayor, I was a little confused by that. Was he complaining that we actually saved money on this particular issue? What I understood is that there was money being saved, and I throw that back to Jamie. Did I understand that we actually saved money on this?
Well, essentially, as a result of the paying off that $7 million debt earlier in this year, we allowed the debt service reserve restriction to be freed up. So once we paid that off, as a result, we had almost $41,000 left over. So once that $2,600 was paid out of that reserve calculation, essentially we had about a little less than $15,000 that was able to go back into the waterfall. So you could potentially look at it as savings, but it was already held in the reserve. We just freed it up and allowed it to go back through the waterfall to pay down additional debt.
Well, my question was, it wasn't an expenditure, so it could be expended sometime in the future, but it truly was extra money left over, right?
Yeah, we released the reserve restriction. So because we paid off the $7 million. So after the $7 million was paid off, we had the $41,000 left over as a result, which typically would have gone into the waterfall. But because of this rebate calculation, we subtracted the $26,000 from that. And essentially we had a little less than $15,000 to go into the waterfall to pay down the debt. So,
Okay.
I mean, you could look at it that way if you wanted
Just
to.
a quick question. This is what we would call normal and necessary and reasonable actions as far as city finances. This is nothing hanky or hinky. I could have got that right. Hinky is the right word to use. Nothing hinky about this. This is something that normally happens.
That's correct. This is an IRS regulation every 5 years. Rebate payments are due every 5 years and they're payable. And that's what this Gilmore and Bell actually did the rebate calculation, of which they do calculations for us on an annual basis. So yes, this is simply cleanup work and really it's just a normal course of business.
Mr. Milton?
Thank you. I guess my comment would be that Alderman Gaines, this really wasn't a savings. And I think I obviously agree with Jamie in the process and what took place, and it was a normal course of business. But I also say that comments like that, disparaging to the callers calling in, I think just further causes them not to want to comment because they just how they feel when they're done talking to the board.
Well, actually what happened was we paid down some debt. The net result was we paid down some debt. And so that's the important part to me. The only way I've ever learned that you pay off debt is to pay it down. And so thank you. Any other comments? Are you ready to vote? All right. Madam Clerk, would you please call a roll call for the vote?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, the vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Thank you. We're ready to move on to item number 13, a first reading of bill number 5975.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5975, an ordinance approving the contract with Verizon Wireless for cellular, voice, and data services, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Right. Begin with a staff report from Chad Foster. Chad?
Sure, Mayor, members of the board. The following agreement is with Verizon Wireless to provide voice and data cellular communications for all city departments. We utilize this as Verizon as our cellular carrier via a federal GSA cooperative purchasing contract. The price of each line can vary depending on line type and features. This agreement allows the city to have up to 225 lines with an estimated yearly cost of $113,400. The agreement can only be enacted in one-year blocks, but it can be renewed or canceled at any time should the need arise. Funds for this are included in the 21 budget appropriations. Staff recommends approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chad. You've heard the first reading of Bill number 5975. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All right. There are no speakers tonight, apparently. And so do the aldermen wish to comment? Mr. Milton.
Chad, just for clarity, I know this is called cellular. Are these aren't actually 200 cellular phones, are they? I mean, is this cellular for our lines at the city hall?
Yeah, so what this is it is cellular communications, which includes phones, but it's much more than that as well. It's voice only flip phones for certain staff that do not require smartphones. It's obviously a lot of smartphones. It's iPads for cellular communications. Almost every police and fire vehicle, there's a few exceptions in police in terms of admin vehicles, but are outfitted with cellular communications for emergency services. And then the last thing would be our SCADA network, which is our utilities department utilizes to monitor all of the sewer and clean water lift stations and valves and things like that for maintenance. And we have a lot of lines for that as well.
Thank you for the clarity, Chad.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Seeing you're ready to vote, Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call vote?
Dean,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, it passes 6-0.
Thank you. We're now ready to move on to item number 14, which is a first reading of bill number 5976, an ordinance amending chapter 86. Madam Clerk, would you please provide?
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5976, an ordinance amending chapter 86, traffic and vehicles, and chapter 94, zoning of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to overnight parking of recreational vehicles at theaters.
We begin with the staff report, Joe Hornicle. Joel?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. This is a unique item that our Planning Commission really was the initiation behind. Current code only allows a recreational vehicle to be parked within a business during hours of operation. Otherwise, recreational vehicles are required to stay in our campgrounds. We actually had a local theater that came through the Planning Commission last year on a couple different requests asking to allow recreational vehicles to park in their parking lot. Unfortunately, that request was denied, but it really was for sleeping dorms as opposed to recreational vehicles. However, the discussion did get the Planning Commission to start looking at the code and wondered if there was additional opportunities because some comments were even made that theaters were allowing recreational vehicles after hours, which, as I mentioned, is not allowed by code currently. So staff began looking at the opportunities for change. And one of the first things we did is we distributed a survey to the 35 local theaters that have business licenses within the community. That was December of last year. We received 14 responses after about 2 weeks' time to our 11 question survey. And we presented that information to the Planning Commission at their following meeting in January of 2021. The Planning Commission then had a discussion during that meeting and a subsequent meeting in February where they arrived at the recommendations we're bringing before you this evening. Planning Commission has recommended approval of this request and staff does as well. Just to hit the highlights of those changes, we are making a small change to chapter 86 to simply add a statement that allows recreational vehicles to be within properties as otherwise stated in code. That'll point us into chapter 94, which is the zoning code, where we've proposed to add two definitions, one for a recreational vehicle and one for a motorhome. And then we are proposing to add supplementary use standards. These are standards that would allow, without any additional approvals, any additional requests, for a theater within the city to have one recreational vehicle within their property. And they could do so 3 times throughout the year for a maximum of 7 days per time. So essentially they'd be getting 21 days a year. We arrived again at this information, these code recommendations based on the survey results from our theaters. So these are people that are already utilizing or have plans to utilize this code. Then we also are proposing for a special use standard if anybody wanted to exceed those quantities. So if they wanted 2 or more recreational vehicles in their property at any given time, if they wanted more than 3 occurrences a year, or more than 7 days per occurrence. The special use permit was, it rated higher as a requesting agent from our theaters that took the survey as opposed to the temporary use permit. So again, that was our rationale for going that route. Again, going through this very thoroughly with our planning commission, but happy to bring it before you all tonight for your consideration. And again, both the planning commission and staff do recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joel. You've heard the first reading of bill number 5976. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
There's a movement, and that second one would be a second, right? All right. We have a motion and a second. Apparently, Madam Clerk, we have a speaker tonight. Again, we've always done it this way, but you're speaking to the ordinance, specifically to the item, and we ask you to keep your comments to that. Usually that's either for or against and the reasons. So we'll go that process. Madam Clerk, would you please provide us with a speaker list?
Speaker tonight is Bodie Jagger, 106 South Drive, Branson, Missouri.
Mr. DeJager, can you hear us okay?
I can.
Your time will begin now.
Good evening again. Speaking of another item that I think is important to our community. I do want to speak on this item, but I do want to throw back as far as the recent item that I recently spoke on. It's not the frustration of us saving on.
You're speaking on this
saving
item.
Saving money on a certain amount of debt payment. It's amazing that our city is over $170 million in debt. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking on this item, I have done some research and looking into what was our founding nation founded on, and I believe a giant part and role of our government is to protect our freedoms and liberties and our own personal property rights. By you trying to impose this is similar to the whole mask mandate situation, as you are imposing governmental restrictions on personal people. And now with this code enforcement, you're trying to restrict parking on a member's business. Now, if the city owns that property, that's one thing, but it should be the person's and business responsibility to have their signs marked. That's why they have signs, no parking here after certain hours or vehicle will be towed. Why are we requesting and requiring our government to impose a restriction on a local business or personal property? I think the code enforcements are far overbearing beyond parking, and it goes into local residences and stuff. And I'm fully aware many of you are trying to do this for appearances of Branson, but that is still no reason to be restricting businesses. They have the right to do as they so do feel as a free nation. Thank you.
All right. Madam Clerk, do we have another speaker?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, you all have heard. Now it's the Alderman's turn. Any comments on this, or you have something you want to say, Joel? Yes. Okay.
Mayor, if I could, I was just going to make a comment that, as I stated in the staff report, this is actually loosening the code requirements in our community. Right now, recreational vehicles are not allowed to stay overnight on theater properties at all. So in working with theaters and working with the Planning Commission, this is loosening those restrictions.
Okay, thank you. Julia King.
Your Honor, my apologies if it's too late to make a motion on postponing this, but I will say that I've read through this and it was really great. I saw the survey responses, Joel. Those were good too. I reached out to Mr. Bob Nichols because I know our Branson Academy and Advancement for Music and Theater are strongly interested in this. And it sounds like there may be a few things that can get added or tweaked before we do a final read. And I just wanted to mention some of those things. Joel, go ahead.
Yes, Joel.
If I may, so Mr. Nichols is actually on the Planning Commission, and he was the one that really kind of started this, and I believe Alderman C maybe can chime into this as well, and he was very active in the final meeting where they voted on this, and what the Planning Commission decided in order to take this forward was to have staff kind of monitor how theaters utilize this code change over the next year or so. And then if anything dramatic needs to be addressed, we would work with the Planning Commission approximately a year from now and make those changes. So that was our plan. But obviously, if you have some suggestions, we're very much open ears.
Thank you. I appreciate that information, Joel. So some of the comments that were made when I spoke to Mr. Bob Nichols is right now, this would allow overnight stay 3 times each year. And really the theaters that this impacts, those individuals would probably need to be there more than 3 times in a calendar year. It was also mentioned that it only allows 1 coach, but it's not uncommon for there to be 2 because you may have your main act in one and your band in the other. Also the permit, the special permit for the $1,050, that would be each time that occurrence happened, and maybe we can consider making that a one-time fee for that calendar year. And those were just some suggestions that were mentioned, and I thought, is there a sense of urgency, or could this be tweaked more to actually benefit those impacted by it?
Mr. Hornicle?
Yeah, so again, those were all comments that Commissioner Nichols brought up during the meeting. And to be just clear, the special use permit is a one-time only. So a theater could request that one time, and that would run with the property forever. Even if the property changed ownership at any point, it would be that property's to have. And specifically about the numbers, the thought was how the Planning Commission arrived at those threshold numbers in the code was directly from the results of the survey. We created a threshold right about 60 to 70%, and that's where we cut the lines at having a single motor coach or recreational vehicle, the three occurrences per year, and then the 7 days per occurrence. And again, we were looking to monitor that, but just slightly surprised that Commissioner Nichols reached out to you after we had that conversation at the Planning Commission. That's all.
So just to be clear, I reached out to him.
Oh, okay.
I reached out to him, and I'm just also curious with the survey results. I understand the threshold that you got back, which was a good percentage of the theaters out there, but the demographic of the participants that actually responded, do they make up, the threshold of the ones that see this type of parking need? Are they the ones that are really impacted? And would it be beneficial at all to allow more input from that group?
Yeah, again, we're glad to. The survey was emailed directly to the contact that we have on file here at City Hall for all businesses, through their business license request, whether it's a manager or a GM or what have you, and we wish the numbers were a little higher, absolutely. And if you all want us to try again and run the survey again, we're glad to do it. I don't believe there's any immediate rush, just that the Planning Commission thought there may be an opportunity, to allow some recreational vehicle parking as the season gets started here, versus again, code does not currently allow that.
Thank you. Any other aldermen have any comments?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes,
well, Joel pretty much covered it there. So, but I will chime in and thank Bob Nichols for bringing this to the table. He did his diligence and he brought it to us. And then Joel, kudos to you for going to school on the classes of RVs and the different types of uses for them. But you know, it's one of those things where it's got the built-in flexibility, and the one-time fee for the special use permit really gives people the flexibility to do what they want. And they would determine that by the usage of their theater and how many buses they may have, then they don't have to keep coming back to us to try to amend that and such. So basically, to simplify it, it is trying to keep our theater parking lots from becoming a campground of sorts if we didn't have these type of things in place. So it was built for flexibility. It can always be, you know, like he said, take the survey again or spread it out to more people, and it can always come back and adjust it. But getting it going for this season will get the ball rolling, and we just got to see how it goes and make changes down the way.
Thank you. Any other comments? One thing that I heard Joel say that I liked is that they're going to try it, you know, and see how it works. And then if it's not working the way it should be, go back and adjust. So I like that flexibility of trying it. Mr. Melton?
Yeah, did I hear that the fee, and I understand it runs with the land, it's $1,050 for the fee? Is that correct?
Yes, for a special use permit, that's correct.
I'll tell you, and I know, Joel, one position is that we're loosening up the guidelines. I think to be more theater friendly, if they have entertainers coming in that travel on a motor coach, I don't know what the city is trying to accomplish by putting restrictions and limitations on what that trade does on a normal basis.
Yeah, so again, it originated from a point of trying to loosen the restrictions, trying to allow an opportunity for recreational vehicles to park on theater properties without any additional approvals. Through the survey, staff was actually looking to propose it as a temporary use, which is a $50 request. However, that needs to be done on an annual basis by properties. But overwhelming, the response in the survey was that they preferred the special use. And the way we explained that in the survey was that the special use would run with the land forever, whereas a temporary use would have to be requested on an annual basis. And I think the one and done approach for property owners was the more attractive option. There is the cost associated with it, obviously. And that's something that, you know, we're going to be reviewing this year. That's part of our goals for this department, is to review all fees. So don't know where that'll end up, but today, yes, that is the fee for that request.
Is there any justification for the $1,000 fee?
Yeah, we base all our fees on staff time. And so that's always run through the budget and finance and the board. And we, you know, Melissa Sill in finance department has done a great job of keeping track of all that data. And anytime you see any fee increases, it's all got the backing of how many hours, what staff is involved, what their hourly rate is with benefits, and then all factored in. And the city's continual goal is to get 90% back of whatever that cost is to the city, recoupment. And special use just happens to be one of the more intense requests that staff needs to process.
Okay, well, for different reasons, but excuse me, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Milton.
Thank you. For different reasons, but I'm going to go with Julia. And boy, I'd sure like to postpone and have some more discussion on this. And there were 14 responses. Did I read that right?
Yeah, out of the 35 business licenses for theaters in the city, 14 responded. That's right.
Yeah, and I'd really like for us to postpone this.
Are you going to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to postpone this until no later than May 25th.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. There's a second. Motion's been made. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir. I just want to follow up on it. I had also had some discussions with the theater people, and they didn't want any restrictions on the number of times the theater could have acts parking in their parking lots. But I do get what Jeff was saying, and what Joel had alluded to was the didn't want that to be a caravan behind the place. I get all that. The other issue that I got a problem with it again is the 1,050 special use permit. Staff's already paid in this, and not trying to denigrate anything they do, but we're trying to make it better for the theaters in the community. And I just want to do what we can to try to help these people out. And I do get what Joel's saying is we're trying to relax this. I'd like to find a way to further relax it, to be more benefit to them, and getting a few more numbers of theaters to contribute to this discussion, I think is nothing but good. So I second what Larry had to say there.
Thank you, Alderman Gaines.
There's a motion and a second. Julie, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say my only hesitation on the second is I didn't know if we can do it sooner, but I do support relaxing this more to support our theater industry. So I am in support of delaying this a little bit so that we can get more input and a few more tweaks to support our theater industry. Thank you.
Okay, you've heard the discussion. Mr. Manning, you've come on.
Mayor, members of the board. Hey, Joel, I just want to ask this question of you to reconfirm that right now, RVs are not allowed in theater parking lots.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, might follow that up. We did allow some RVs at the Mel Tillis's old theater, though, correct?
Mr. Skanes, that was the genesis of what Joel mentioned earlier, a project that I was actually helping Joel on, and that theater, and the planning commission denied that.
But they were allowed to keep them there. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I know they were, I went out there, checked, and they were still there for a period of time later.
Not occupied.
Unoccupied? Okay, thank you. Thank you, John.
Is everyone clear that we're going to vote on a proposed postponement till, I think you said May 25th? Are we ready to vote?
Yeah, to clarify that, I have that motion to postpone no later than May 25th,
Right.
2021. So that leaves that potential for it to come back a little earlier if desired.
That's correct.
All right. Since we're ready to vote, Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, it passes 6-0.
Postponed. All right, thank you. Ready to move on to item number 15. First reading of bill number 5977.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5977, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Online Solutions LLC, DBA Citizen Serve for a land management software solution, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
All right. Again, with a staff report from Joe Harnicle.
Mayor, members of the board, we've been working with Citizen Serve now for a couple of years. It was thanks to the city's strategic information technology plan that really pointed out the need for going electronic and going digital here in the Plan and Development Department. We, with contract back in 2019, retained Citizen Serve and worked pretty diligently the second half of 2019 to set the building module up. Our timing couldn't have been any better. We rolled it out January 1st of 2020, just a couple months before the pandemic hit. And it really helped us get through the year. Being able to have our customers work remotely and submit remotely, pay remotely, as well as staff to do their reviews and inspections, all from an internet cloud-based software system, and not be tethered to a computer here at City Hall. So just it's been a wonderful, wonderful advancement for this department and for the community. Now we're looking at extending this contract for another year. Last year, the contract amount was $34,200, and that was for 19 users. Over the course of the year, we did identify additional opportunities for additional users. We would have loved to go with more, but we are looking at adding 6 users, which would get us up to a total of 25 users across 7 city departments. To add 6 users, that now takes our budget amount, which is the contract amount of $37,500. And that does include Taney County Health as well. They are in the system and do their plan reviews and inspections. So with that, staff recommends approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Alrighty, thank you. You've heard the first reading of Bill 5977. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
A second's there. All right. No citizens are signed up. Any alderman wishing to speak to this item?
Mayor.
Mr. C.
Joel, just to clarify, this program is the gold standard, right? I mean, there's other competitors out there, but.
Oh yeah, definitely. So we went through an RFP process back in 2019 and dwindled it down to 2 companies that we had come in on site here at City Hall and do some demos for an entire day. It really came down to cost, customer service, and the product. And CitizenServe, had all 3. It was the cheapest. They had the best customer service and the best product from staff's perspective. It got raving reviews from everybody. And I'll say that over the course of the year, their customer service has been phenomenal. It's just been wonderful. We're getting responses very quickly, and they're very attentive to the needs of the city of Branson. So we've been very happy.
Gotcha. So moving in those circles, I've never heard anybody complain or have issues with it other than change. That's about the only thought I've had. So thank you, Joel.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Appears you want to vote. So Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call vote?
Approved.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, the vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Right. Thank you. We're ready to move on to item 16. It's the first reading of bill number 5978. Madam Clerk, please provide the introduction.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5978, an ordinance amending Appendix A fee schedule of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to technology fees.
Right. Begin with a staff report from Joe Hornicle.
Mayor, members of the board, as we just discussed on the previous item, this is still dealing with CitizenServe. When we first came before you all for the initial contract to sign up with CitizenServe and get things rolling, it was very much, sold or agreed to that we would use a technology fee to help cover the city's costs. So there's not an additional cost on the city's general fund. So we implemented that technology fee actually at the beginning of January 2019 to begin recruiting those costs. The initial amount was $10 for all building permit requests and $5 for all planning and sign requests. Now that we've got a year under our belt of activity, it generated just under about $10,000. However, as you may just remember from the previous item, we now have a contract amount of $37,500. However, some of CitizenServe's use is for the police department or areas that are unable to recoup fees or that's not the intent of the software. So in trying to only look at the building and planning modules, we are proposing to increase those fees to $30 for building related fees and $15 for planning and sign related fees. We did take this before the Budget and Finance Committee during their February meeting, and they did vote unanimously to recommend approval of this request. However, during that meeting, they did ask staff to reach out to other cities in the area for comparison. So we did reach out to 8 communities within the area, and of those 8, there was only one that currently has a technology fee in place, and that's Springfield. Their technology fee happens to be a percentage base of their building fee of 17%. However, they do have a minimum amount of $45. So that is $15 more than what's being proposed to you all this evening for a technology fee. They also have $50 established for many other of their requests. However, I did want to note that for temporary signs, they only had a technology fee of $10, which would be $5 less than what we're proposing under the planning and sign fee of $15. As I mentioned, the Budget and Finance Committee recommends approval and staff does as well. And again, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joel. Do I have a motion for the first reading of bill number 5978, approving it?
So moved.
There's a motion and
Second.
and a second. All right. Do we have a speaker tonight, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we do. Your Honor,
Okay, I'll remind the speaker to the topic. This is a reading about an ordinance amending our fee schedule for municipal code pertaining to technology fees. Thank you.
our speaker tonight is Bo D. Jager, 106 South Drive, Branson, Missouri.
Mr. DeJager, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
We'll start your clock now. Thank you.
To talk a little bit and to agree or disagree, I will simply disagree with the raise in fees for these, as I would like to speak. I think it's a bit unnecessary that our city is recording a fee and recording whether or not someone has a sign. I attempted to put a sign in front of my yard and was told to take it down because I didn't have a permit for it. Now, regardless, if it's on my property, what does the city's involvement in having a sign in my personal property? I think that's an overstepping boundary. So to be putting a fee on top of it, let alone trying to tell someone they can't have something on their personal property, is bogus. So increasing the fees is just another money grab by our city to try and compensate from bad dealings and bad money spending issues. I think they should all be done with, especially if there's nothing involved other than some simply recording. Now, if you're zoning or something like that, when you rezone a property, I'm sure there are hefty fees when somebody's physically changing something in your system. But beyond that point, by having a record of something, the fees are just irresponsible. I do want to toss, I didn't actually mean to sign up for this. I want to talk on the pet ordinance and also speak that definitely in favor.
Technology, Mr. DeJager, you're talking about the technology issue on this issue only.
Right, but with respect, I didn't get to speak because this isn't in person. I wouldn't have walked up to the podium for the wrong item, but seeing as I had to sign up, I accidentally signed up for the wrong item. So I'm just wondering,
Mr. DeJager, but right now we're talking about technology. Have you finished talking about the technology fees?
Okay, yep. One more thing. Have you told all the city workers to go home?
Thank you. All right. We've had comments, sadly, comments that I would hope that people would spend some time preparing and figure out what they want to do and say. But, Madam Clerk, no other speakers?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Alderman, have any comments?
I think Mr. Milton does.
All right, Mr. Milton.
Boy, I'll tell you, I just don't like increasing our fees. Every time we turn around, it seems like we're increasing our fees to our builders, developers, homeowners, businesses. I don't think every expense we have should be designed to be cost neutral, where the consumer pays the fee. I mean, that's what our taxes are for. I am really opposed to adding or increasing any fees to citizens serve.
Any other comments?
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. C.
Joel, could you sort of give us how you arrived at these fees and the percentages? I know you went through how you based it on surrounding cities or Springfield. So are most of these fees associated with the citizen serve?
Yeah, we're only talking about technology fee, and the only place that that's applicable is through citizen serve. That's correct.
Gotcha. So you had mentioned
not,
this is, go ahead.
It's not for any other technology in the city. It's only requests made through citizen serve. That's
gotcha.
correct.
So you had mentioned that we've been with that program for about 2 years. So over those 2 years, 24 months, is this how you figured out, hey, we're trying to find a median point here that covers our expenses, still gives the public what they need at somewhat of affordable price, and that's how you can balance that out?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We look at the volume that came through the system, the number of building permits, the number of planning requests, and the number of sign requests. And then obviously we know what the budget amount is on an annual basis. We know how much per user amounts are, so we can remove, as I said, the police department users from that total budget. And so using all that information and data, that's how we arrived at this amount. That's correct.
Gotcha. So I'm projecting a big boom now. Everything's going good, right? 2021.
Yeah.
So do we going to foresee that any adjustments down the road, or are you just going to have to base that on usage and time spent? And
it's always possible to come back and make adjustments. It's something we'll definitely continue to review and keep an eye on, just as we do with all of our other fees. Again, based on it's a unit, so a volume. So I mean, it would have to be an amazingly big year to change the volume such that would dramatically change this amount.
Gotcha. Well, think positive.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joel.
Any other comments, Mr. Milton?
Joel, a couple of questions.
Sure.
Does citizen serve save the city money as far as efficiencies?
Absolutely. We've reduced our processing fee when we got citizen serve as a result. That was one of the first things we did. Also, one of the other reductions I'm really proud about was we used to require 15 days for staff to provide an initial response, and we've lowered that down to 10 days to be able to get responses to our customers quicker.
Has the building fees been reduced?
That's what we're looking at this year. As I mentioned, that's one of our goals this year. And right after we finish this exercise, we're moving right into that and hope to have something prepared and looked at before we really start looking in on the budget numbers for next year.
I'd sure like to tie the two together. I mean, if we're going to increase fees because of efficiencies, and then we can reduce fees from the building process, I think those two conversations should be had at the same time.
Yeah, I don't disagree. We thought it was advantageous to have this conversation with the citizen serve contract and bundle them together. And that's why we've brought them to you this evening together.
Any other comments?
But we didn't bring the citizen serve increased fees, and the builders decreased, the building fees decreased at the same time, did we?
No, I was referring to the citizen serve contract and then the technology fee, which is tied to the citizen serve requests.
Okay, well,
I'm sorry, Ms. Milton.
I'd like to make a motion.
Hand up, just a moment. I saw a hand up from Jamie Whitus.
I just wanted to, Joe, what, I know you got a response from Springfield. Do they use citizen serve? And then what were the other communities that you searched out, and did they use citizen serve?
So we're the only one in the area. Ozark had been looking at them, but I believe they went with a different vendor. Springfield actually built their own system from the ground up. You know, we kind of laughed because when we were hiring a company to work with, we told them, just please don't do what Springfield did, because we've heard repeatedly just how difficult of a system it is for contractors up in Springfield. And so we've really strived hard to not, you know, fall down the same, I guess, problems or issues that they've had. And again, I think we are really out in front on this topic, because other cities around us have really not jumped into the electronic plan submission. As I said, I think Ozark is right behind us. They haven't settled on one yet. And then Springfield and everybody else still, you know, does it the paper way that we're aware of. The ones we reached out to. The ones we did reach out to were Branson West, Hollister, Forsyth, Joplin, Nixa, Ozark, Republic, and Springfield were the 8.
Thank you.
Are we ready to vote?
Mayor,
Mr. Milton?
I'd like to make a motion to postpone this until, and before we charge an additional fee for building fees. I know this is citizen serve, but we haven't reduced the fees for construction. We know we've had efficiencies in this. Why would we choose to raise the fees to the builders and the homeowners using this before we even address reducing their fees due to the efficiency?
Is it a motion? You have a motion then to postpone to what date?
April 25th.
Okay, there's been a motion.
I couldn't hear that, Mr. Mayor. What was the date on that, Larry?
Oh, May 25th, I'm sorry.
Okay, then a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Whitus? Second. All right. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Like I say this probably a little more often than I should. There's a few times where Larry and I agree on something. And in this particular situation, I definitely would like to look at what other cost benefits are going to be because of this. And we're looked at in the community as a fee charging for everything under the sun, guys. And I get what we're trying to do, but the public's perception is we charge a fee for everything. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Julia, you had something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to be clear on what was going to be accomplished between now and the postponed date.
Okay, all right.
And I don't know who
That'd
can
be one
answer that.
question we'll keep in the back of our mind. And there was one other hand up. Was it Mr. Simmons? Yes.
Yes, this is a pretty small fee, and I believe the original feedback we got on this was the fee we started charging originally was way worth more to the people that were using it than it cost. And certainly the city didn't have to go with Citizen Serve, didn't have to go online with these plan receipts, et cetera. We could stay just like the other cities that don't have it. Therefore, they would have to go through the same paperwork that they've always had to go through. So this was made for the benefit of everyone, and particularly for the contractors to give them an additional benefit. It was plainly stated at the time it went in that was an introductory fee to before we got a handle on how much it was going to actually cost. So we went through the finance committee and discussed all this. I believe it was a 6-0 vote, and Alderman Milton and I both sat on that committee, and it was discussed thoroughly. I'm not sure our contractors are going to complain at all about this. I think they expected us to try to get a reasonable amount out of it, and this is a pretty small part of any building project. We're just talking about a few dollars here. So it seems to me that trying to recover that cost, make it more efficient for them, make the city be able to respond quicker is worth it to everybody. So just a little perspective. Thank you.
I agree.
Well, Julia's question, I'm sorry, Mr. Milton.
I was just responding to Bob. Bob, I agree with you, but I think in the same breath, the builder fee should go down because both sides are being more efficient. I'm sorry, that's it.
Well, I think
hopefully they're going to address that next.
Yes,
would be
what Joel shared with us that they're going to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a process. Julia's question was, what's going to be accomplished by this postponement?
I would like to see us address the efficiency of Citizen Serve and the efficiency from the contractor's point of view and the city's point of view. You have to believe the city is saving money with this program. So is there an opportunity to reduce the cost to the contractors for their building fees in addition to having this fee that we're talking about to cover for Citizen Serve? I think both sides are benefiting, except for the contractors. We're saying, well, let's raise their fees and then we'll look at reducing their expenses I'd like to see us do it simultaneously.
Mr. Hornicle.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. So the last time we reviewed our fees for building permit requests, staff found out through all the work they did that we were recouping approximately 25% of staff time that was into it. There was a 3-year process that we were going to take on. We did the first year and then it was frozen because of many of the similar comments that are being made tonight that, you know, we still want to be economic development friendly. We still want to, you know, be open to development. And so we stopped that process. So I can say without that exercise that we are woefully short from recouping our costs. So I would anticipate you know, after we go through this work that it may not be, you know, the reduction maybe that the perception is, but we'll definitely take a look at. That was our plan. It will take some time to do for sure. And then just to touch on what Alderman Simmons said, very much so, we had contractors and applicants that were spending quite large fees on FedEx or UPS to get drawings sent in from locations. As well as the gas that it took to drive down here to drop off, and then to drive back down here to pick up and to sign and to pay. So yes, even people building homes or people getting sign permits, there is much more efficiency in saving money by not having to come down to City Hall and doing it through Citizen Serve.
Okay. Ready?
Mayor.
Yes, Jeff C.
So yeah, sort of like I asked the leading questions to Joel to let us know how he arrived at these fees. And then when you hear that, you know, we're collecting 25% of what we should, I agree with Bob. It's not a big increase. And I'll tell you what, to a contractor, when they had the 15 days and that didn't count weekends, 15 working days, getting that down to 10, that's huge for a contractor when they're trying to move along their projects and stuff. So, you know, it seems like sometimes we take one step forward with developers and contractors. In the last couple of weeks, I think we've taken a step back. So I agree. I don't see, this is something they want to use. It gets us to where we need to be. I think Joel has said that he doesn't foresee any huge increases unless we have, you know, a lot more building going on. So that's where I'm at.
We have a lot of building going on.
Mr. Milton, yes, recognize you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor. We do have a lot of building going on, and I think Joel acknowledged the city is also much more efficient with Citizen Serve. But the approach we're taking is, let's charge the contractors and then wait and see, and then maybe we'll reduce their fees down the road. That just doesn't, from a contractor's point of view, that just doesn't make sense. I know the contractors are getting a benefit. Joel says our city is getting a benefit. If we're getting a benefit, why don't we reduce the fee?
Well, at some point in time, I appreciate all the discussion. Yeah, obviously, it's a process. You can't do everything at one time. And so we need to take steps to get down where we can. Our staff has already done a lot of work in this particular area of getting this stuff done. And Julia's question was very apropos. What's going to be accomplished between now and then, other than loading them again to do some of the same work they've done over again? If we could take steps and recognize he did say we are going to look at building fees and cost, that's the next step. And if we can reduce them, but it sounds like if we're only getting 25% of those now, it sounds like it may be an increase rather than a decrease. And so by putting it off, it may cost our builders more. So that's my only comment. We've got a motion on the floor for postponement. Madam Clerk, did we understand the motion and what we're voting on?
We have a motion to postpone to May 25th, 2021. The motion is second. Ready to vote?
Please, roll call.
Keen,
No.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
No.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
No.
Your Honor, we have a tie, 3-3 vote.
Yes, we do. I'm going to vote no. And the reason being is so that we can get some of our work caught up and done and not keep going backwards. And so I think we have some future work to do, and I appreciate the concerns and discussion. And so at this point in time, my vote is no. Madam Clerk.
Your Honor, are we ready for the vote on the first reading bill number 5978 then?
I think so.
A roll call.
Anybody? All right. Please do a roll call on bill 5978.
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
No.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
No.
Milton,
No.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, we have a tie, a 3-3 vote. Your vote would break the tie.
I vote for approval. Yes.
The vote is 4-3 and it passes.
Thank you. Ready now to move on to item number 17, acknowledgement of disbursements for February 5 through February 26. Do I have a motion to acknowledge the receipt of the disbursements from February 5/21 through February 26/21?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right. Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call vote?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, thank you. C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We now have a report from the alderman for their wards and comments they would like to make about city business. At this point in time, start off with Alderman King.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to recap how the community-wide litter pickup has been going. Our first weekend was 2 Saturdays ago in Ward 1. We had 25 volunteers show up in the pouring rain, and they did an excellent job alongside Officer Edie and Fire Station 3. Last Saturday, we had almost 50 volunteers show up in Ward 2, who also did an amazing job alongside Officer Shook and Fire Station 2. And I don't, want to create too much competition, but Fire Station 2 kind of showed out a little bit. So next weekend, if people haven't signed up already, they still can right there on our City of Branson website. As of right now, our online registered volunteers have a head count of 50 that we're expecting next weekend in Ward 3. So it's been a wonderful thing. People are having a great time. And that's all I have to report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Alderman Whitus.
Let's go Ward 3 because it's going to be sunny and 75 on Saturday. So let's get out and support this. And whichever officer is going to be with us again, I prefer my black coffee. So I'll join you for that too. So thank you.
Is that your order already? Get your order placed in. All right. Alderman Simmons.
Thank you. I have no report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Alderman Gaines.
Yes, sir. I have about 4 items. I want to thank the chamber and the CVB and the theaters for the work that they have done together to try to reach a common ground and moving forward in the marketing of theaters in this area. Live entertainment is number one draw in this area, according to the time of the year. And any of the bit of the work that they're doing right now is moves the ball forward, I guess. There's been a long way for us to go with people pointing fingers back and forth at each other, and those fingers have slowly dropped, and there's a cooperative feeling it's out there. I'd like to thank Julia for the work she has done on this cleanup. It was a Herculean effort to pull all this off. I would like to see us encourage businesses on an ongoing basis to clean up their own messes around their facilities and not wait for city staff to come by or the Board of Aldermen to come by or to organize. There should be something ongoing like we used to in the community. I was encouraged by the recent surge in visitorship and seeing that the tourism tax for the TCED up 9% versus the previous year. That's encouraging, and I hope that continues to increase. I like that trend. I think we all do. I want to thank the hospital and the Taney County Health Department for the work they've done to getting needles in arms. Mine didn't even hurt, and I'm not much of a shot guy in the first place. But what they have done, we got something in from the health department said, I think over 10,000 inoculations and roughly 3,700 fully vaccinated. That's moving the right direction and on this. And they stated, and I think it's kind of important, that they're having walk-ins available tomorrow from 2 to 6:30 at the Taney County clinic, and also walk-ins at 9:30 starting tomorrow. The shops at Branson Meadows and 4340 Gretna. And I would encourage anybody who's been waiting for the shots to get them done and helping us move this ball forward. Mr. Mayor, that's all my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skanes. Mr. Milton?
Wow, I don't know how to say this, but I have to agree with Alderman Skanes on an item. On the theater coalition, all getting together and working forward following the theater study. I'm anxious to get involved with that and assist that process also. Other than that, I'm good. Thank you.
Alderman C.
Yeah, I was going to sort of echo what Bill said. I got my vaccine first shot today up at the Branson Meadows Mall. They're accepting walk-ins, pretty simple process, but I just urge everybody, like he said, let's get the ball rolling. Let's get the vaccinations. Of course, everybody get out and vote. Even my ward mate, Cody Fenton, needs at least one vote. So we need to get somebody out there to vote for him. And then another thing I'd like to say is there's some candidates that are sending out a lot of mixed signals about voting on 1 and 2. I would like to sort of see them clarify their stance on it, because a lot of people are still confused. So those are my comments.
All right. Talking about the tourism tax, number 1 and 2.
Yes, sir.
All right. City Administrator, Assistant Administrator, Manning.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I just wanted to thank the members of the Chamber of Commerce 5 and 5 and the Tourism Task Force group to allow Ms. Rauch and I to sit in on their sensing sessions in town halls to help explain the tourism tax. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Well, obviously, it's a huge vote for our community, and thank you, Alderman C, for pointing out that there needs to be perfect clarity. We need to be really transparent in regard to where we are in regard to that tax. And it's not a new tax. It's one that we've had, and it's the fuel for the engine that we have for this community to be able to grow and expand, to take care of the guests that we have, and then also market the area so that we have people come. So the encouragement to get to the facts and look at them and realize how much good that tourism tax does. I appreciate you guys. You deliberate, you think through things, you prepare. I appreciate the fact that you're seeking to do what you're supposed to do for the citizens of Branson. This next meeting that we have in April going to be bittersweet for me, because I've got not only a good friend, but a guy I've known for a long time who served on this Alderman's Council and has been the backbone of looking after the finances for our city. And I appreciate Mr. Bob Simmons very much. And he's decided to retire from this wonderful paying job that he has. And of all $10 per meeting, I wonder how many $10 you've actually gotten, Bob, on all that. I bet you made some meetings they didn't pay you for. But Bob, you get to retire with glory and for your work for the city of Branson. I'm thankful for our visitors who are coming. They're coming in record numbers. And Jamie, I thought, was going to talk a little bit about, how much volume they were doing compared to last year, but they're having huge results. And this seems to be the longest spring break I've ever seen. It just keeps on. It's been going on for about 2.5 weeks now. And so it looks like our folks are doing what they said they would like to do. If they felt like they could get out and come, they would. And we're seeing huge increases. One of the most encouraging things I heard was Ballparks of America had a tournament team that they had 300 teams in. After the announcement by Forbes Travel, they're now at 600 teams for that tournament from all over the country, teams that didn't feel safe going other places and they felt like they could come to Branson. I believe we've got the needle going in the right direction. And I believe that a huge part of that responsibility has been this Alderman crew that have stood by and made tough decisions and looked to the future and protected our citizens and the visitors who come here. And thank you for that. With that, old Ed will be quiet and ask, I think we need to vote to go into an executive session. We get this properly. I think an alderman needs to make that motion.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make the motion move. We go into closed executive session pursuant to 610.021.2 RSMO for real estate.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All right. Second. All right. Madam Clerk, would you now provide a roll call vote?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
After a 5-minute break, yes.
Milton,
After a 6-minute break, yes.
C.
C.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Zero.
We now are being able to go into executive session, but we have to adjourn from this one. Before I start that process, apparently we actually have to go out of our system here and then come back into it. So take your 5 or 6 minute break, but no longer. I got the clock on you. And we then dial back in on the instructions that you got for the executive session so we can have that meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn the Board of Aldermen meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion. Second. All right. Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
Vote is 6-0, passes.